the channel. So today I'm going to redo the series a bit, at least rename the title. So instead of calling it a weekly overview, I'm gonna just now refer to it as a tech review. I think me personally, I feel like it sounds better than weekly overview. So for now on, this is how the series will now go. It would just be known as tech review instead of weekly overview. So with that out the way, let's get into the agenda for this week. So in today's video, we'll be discussing Cursor, what that is and how that looks, and then we'll be talking about vibe coding, a new up-and-coming way of coding, and then we'll also get into a little bit about what the Volo score is. So without further ado, let's switch us over to my Cursor application. Alright, so here we are in the Cursor IDE here, and I just want to do like a quick overview of why Cursor is so widely used nowadays. So just a brief overview. Cursor is a AI-powered IDE for desktop platforms, right? And the main goal of it is to essentially make coding easier. Basically getting rid of the whole nuance of it. Alright, so if you guys have worked with Visual Studio Code before, which is another popular IDE created by Microsoft, you should be able to easily navigate through Cursor, right? A lot of the layout of it is almost identical to VS Code, right? However, there is a major difference, that being the integration of an AI, right? So this right here is the AI chatbot, and it allows you to ask questions regarding the code. It writes code for you, so it's actually very helpful. And I do have an example code right here, just so that I can show you guys how helpful it can be. So I wrote a basic code here to basically find all the prime numbers up to a certain number here, right? That number being 100, right? But I made sure to write this in a very inefficient way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, can you change the code to be more efficient? Alright. Oh. I spelled that wrong. Efficient, alright? So then if I type this, it's gonna go here. It says, okay, I'll help optimize the prime number finding algorithm. Here's a more efficient version using the blah 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 algorithm and stuff like that. So it completely rewrote the code that I had here to be more efficient, right? And then it gives a little bit of a breakdown as to why this one is gonna be more efficient and stuff like that, right? So what I'll do is, if let's say I want to use this code, all I have to do is press this button right here to apply, and then it'll swap. But before it swaps, it highlights what's going to change here, right? So everything in the green is everything that is that's going to be put in, right? And you can accept that by pressing this button right here, or using the shortcut Control Shift Y. So let's do that right here. Control Shift Y. Boom. Accepted. Right? Oh, I did not mean to do that. Actually, let me introduce the another feature in the AI, which is restoring a checkpoint. So consider checkpoints being you know, the point before an AI changes your code. This obviously allows you to fix mistakes that I just made right now, where if you did not want to change a part of your code, you can always just go back and boom, you go back to the original code. So let us copy that in again. Let's see here. Okay, so we'll reapply, and boom, there we are. So this is the optimized code for the original code that we had here, right? So if we're going to just run this, let's do Python fnc. Oh, sorry about that. So Python fnc.py, we get all these numbers, right? So the output was going to be the same, right? But I just wanted to show like how more efficient this version of the code is compared to, you know, the last version that we had, right? So I'll talk a little bit more in the next section about, you know, why this style of coding is up and coming and stuff like that, but I just wanted to give everyone a brief introduction into, you know, Cursor and why I believe it's very groundbreaking in terms of coding. So now let's jump back to the presentation to discuss vibe coding. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about vibe coding, about what it is. So we briefly touched upon this in the last section, but you know, just to remind everybody, vibe coding is it's an emerging programming paradigm that really aims to automate substantial portions of the coding process. That's really all it is. And the methodology around this is that developers interact with AI models using natural language prompts, and these AI will interpret these inputs and use it to generate, modify, or debug code for the user. Now, there have been a lot of different coding assistants that have popped up that use AI in their IDEs. You know, we just talked about Cursor, for instance, right? I showed you Cursor in the last section, but you know, more examples would be like Bolt, Lovable, and I believe another one on top of my head is Replit Agent. I believe that's another one. But there's like so many different coding assistants out there that are utilizing AI, right? I think it's gonna be kind of hard in in a few years here to find a coding assistant that does not use AI at all. And a lot of these tools utilize large language models for companies like OpenAI and Anthropic to interpret and execute user instructions. So let's now talk about the advantages of vibe coding, right? Why is it so hyped? Why is there so much promise around vibe coding, and why is it looked to be as the future of coding? So one of the key advantages is increased productivity, right? With the help of AI, you can essentially have like small engineering teams, for instance, right, that can essentially output the same amount of tasks, right? If you were comparing them to larger teams, simply by just automating routine coding tasks, which is incredible. Next up we have is accessibility. Individuals with limited programming experience can develop functional software by describing desired features in a natural language, right? Essentially just reducing, the painstaking grind of trying to understand syntax between all the different languages. Now all you have to do is type into a AI chatbot, hey, this is what I'm looking to make, right? Can you write this code for me? Or better yet, asking the AI chatbot, hey, can you translate this, this Java written code and, I don't know, change the syntax around so it can work in Python, for instance, right? Something like that, right? Completely taking out the need of restructuring code to, to fit another language. Let's talk about the challenges that vibe coding has. So one such challenge would probably be the debugging limitations. AI tools may struggle with complex debugging, which will require human intervention to resolve many of the intricate issues. Another challenge that I can see is probably the code quality and maintainability. So, we talked about this last week about over-reliance on AI-generated code, so I won't really get into it too much here, but, I believe that over-reliance on AI-generated code without, thorough understanding will mostly lead to technical debt and maintenance challenges. So now that we discussed the challenges, I think let's talk about, the adoption into the industry, right? How is vibe coding really getting into the industry here? We have Silicon Valley incubators like Y Combinator, for instance, right, have basically observed that vibe coding is going to enable small teams to achieve larger team results, like I mentioned before, right? All because of the AI generated code. And I really truly believe that this is the way of the future, but don't take my word for it. I will actually play a clip for you right here from the Lycombe podcast, where they had such members from Y Combinator talking about vibe coding and how it's really shaping the industry here.
What is the estimated code that's being written by LLMs in the current Badger?
Hi, this is pretty crazy. So we explicitly asked this question: what % of your code base do you estimate is AI generated? The way I interpret the question is like of the actual characters in your code base, not including any libraries that you imported, a percentage of the characters were typed by human hands versus emitted by an LLM. And the crazy thing is 1/4 of the founders said that more than 95% of their code base was AI generated.
Wow.
Which is an insane statistic. And it's not like we funded a bunch of non-technical founders. Every one of these people is highly technical, completely capable of building their own product from scratch. A year ago, they would have built their own product from scratch, but now 95% of it is built by an AI.
Except for, maybe it sounds like we have one or two examples of people who they're so young that they learned to code in the last 2 years. So they actually don't know a world where Cursor didn't exist.
Yeah, this is one of my best companies. This batch actually is exactly this. The founders are extremely technical minds, but they're not classically trained in computer science and programming. And they are incredibly productive and able to produce just a ton of really amazing product. And AI is writing almost the entire thing.